Hi, this is Brett Sankis, the Right Brand business lawyer and a business consultant. And this is another video in our series about mastering business partnerships. Today we're going to go back and talk a little bit more about structuring business partnerships. So we're going to talk about equity and control at a high level. We've talked about 50-50 partnerships. We've talked about 51-49 partnerships. Today we're going to talk about 49-49-2, which is something you've heard me talk about a little bit. We're going to dive a little bit deeper on that today. So just recapping where we came from, 50-50 partnerships, a lot of lawyers and accountants will tell you run a million miles away from them because they're worried about stalemates. They've seen a lot of situations where the two partners can't make a decision. And that's understandable. And you have to be very cautious getting into a partnership on a 50-50 basis. I happen to believe they can be great partnerships. But you need to know yourself. You need to know the person you're getting into business with. So if you're co-founder and you have a lot of history together, you've been in business before, you just know that you can always work things out and want to figure out how to work things out, 50-50 can be great. For newer founding teams that have come together more recently, who have less history with each other, who don't have that same level of confidence that will always figure it out, 51-49 works well. In that world, someone has the vote. And this all assumes, you can do things in all sorts of different ways, but this all assumes that the majority vote rules. So the 51% vote holder gets to say what happens. Now, that can carry a lot of risk. The risk being that the 51% owner might just railroad the 49, not really even give them much of a say. And 51-49 kind of signals that we're pretty equal, right? I mean, that's why we're going to own such a similar amount from an economic standpoint. Every $100 we make, you get 51, I get 49. That's pretty close to equal. But if everything's majority vote, it means you have all the control. That's pretty unequal, right? So that works well when you really, as the minority owner, really trust the 51% owner to value your opinion, to not make decisions in their favor lightly. The problem is, remember, we're only in 51-49 territory because there's kind of a lack of trust, or we have a more recent relationship. So 51-49 can be tough too. It can end up with the 49% owner thinking, I thought this was going to be an equal deal, and well, you make all the decisions and don't even consult me, and it's never my, right? I mean, you just decide what you want in the end. It doesn't feel good. So a structure that overcomes both the problems of 50-50 and 51-49 is 49-49-2. And the easiest way to understand this structure is to think about a world not where we have two founders, but where we have three. And let's say you and I are in business together and we have a third founder. You and I own 40%, each, and our third founder owns 20%. Well, now if majority vote rules, or 51% carries the day all the time, neither of us can decide alone. We have to get the 20% on board. Or we agree together, right? Or we all agree. But in a world where you and I can't make a decision, we've got this natural deciding vote. So 49-49-2 is that world. It's a more hacked version of it. So it's where we don't have a third founder, really. It's just you and I. 50-50 doesn't work for one reason or another. 51-49 doesn't work for one reason or another, based on what we talked about earlier. And so we decide, okay, let's be 49-49 each, and let's bring in Susie. We'll give her 2%. Now, you might remember me talking about neutral arbiter. This is different than that. Neutral arbiter is where we have an independent party who has decided we both trust, value their opinion, don't think they'll be biased, and is willing to take on the role of referee. And if we get stalemated, we go to neutral arbiter. Here, it's the same thing, but it's not only, kinda, but not only when you have a stalemate, it's just always a vote there. And that person has a seat at the table and they've got some say. And so it's never about getting to a stalemate. We always need to decide together or have this other person agree. So that can work well, and it can overcome the other issues. A few things. One is they really have to own 2%. So if it's purely, if this person doesn't work in the business, that's a little bit odd to just give them 2% because economically they'll get distributions and dividends and they'll have something going on. Also, you've got to be very careful that 2% doesn't feel an allegiance to one or the other of the founders, or it might not work like you want it to work. But so those are the real three big structures when we're talking about two partners or founders. Again, when you've got 3 or 4 or more, some of these issues resolve themselves, like the 40-40-20 example I gave you. But if it's just two of you, you got 50-50, you got 51-49, you have 49-49-2. There's all sorts of different ways to, within that paradigm, split them up. But Again, there's a lot you can do. Each structure kind of has its own, general use case in the world. So if you have questions about this, reach out. If you haven't done an agreement, you need one done, reach out. If you just want to give me some feedback, what's going well, what isn't, something you want me to talk more about or less, I would love that feedback. These videos are based on that feedback. So thank you for stopping by today.